Do you have a good sales pitch? Are you asking for the close? Are you prepared for the objections? And if it's not you, is your staff trained? No one wants to buy from anyone who seems unconfident in what they're selling. All of the data shows in sales that if you allow people to leave, that the amount of people who follow up, even that are crazy interested, is very low. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cheer Biz Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Cotton, and today we are talking about the fact that selling is not the same as closing. Now, before we get into the episode, as always, head on over to Cheer Gym Owners on Facebook and All-Star Cheer Coaches and Owners as well, and join those groups if you're a gym owner or a coach and an owner, or even just a coach. Also, check out nextgenowners.com so you can learn more about how to join the academy. And last but not least, go to ngconferences.com. Get registered for our conference in Dallas, June 21st through the 23rd. I'm going to be there. I'm actually going to be teaching about sales and doing a whole sales intensive, although I may talk you out of coming to my class here in just a second. So let's get into the episode. And the reason I'm going to talk you out of coming to my class is I like to feel I'm decent at sales. I am comfortable talking to people. I think I've figured out a lot of things. But just this last weekend, I had what I would consider almost an epic fail in my sales regime. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. So I went to a conference this last weekend. It's the Oregon Cheerleading Coaches Association conference. They run a really cool event. I know a lot of states don't do this, where where our nonprofit board puts on a conference. They bring in people from outside the state and experts from within the state and put on a whole conference, very similar to like what NextGen does, but really around coaching. It's a pretty legit event, and they have vendors and do all of that stuff. And I was there as a vendor for Dream Camps. This is where Dream Camps started. And I had a few more openings for our team camps, and I was trying to fill those and also promote individual camp. And we do this really cool coaches hands-on training and retreat in Oregon, where we do 2.5 days of like hands-on training where you learn how to spot. You actually get to get in there. You get to get in there and stunt, go over score sheet. It's just like a whole intensive. And there's actually a number of people from coming around the world even to come to our coaches retreat. So I wanted to promote that for our Oregon coaches. And we have coaches coming around to our table all night long. And it was one of the better evenings we've had in the recent past at this event. We had tons of people coming to the table, tons of people asking questions, tons of people who were very, very interested in camp, excited about the new location, excited about our multiple tracks, being able to get choreography while at camp, excited about being able to earn All-Star Worlds bids, like all of those things. I was crushing it on the sales perspective. I was getting people totally motivated and totally excited, and they were very interested. They're like, okay, this sounds awesome. This sounds great. I'm like, yeah, we've only got these dates. So they're asking about the coaches retreat, and like, this sounds great. This is awesome. I'm just selling it. And I've got 2 of my staff there, and they're selling it, and they are telling everybody about it. People are hyped. People are interested. I'm building the buzz. I'm getting people excited and interested in the product. And that was the evening. And I left and I told Tori, man, I think we had the most interest we've ever had. People are certainly talking about it. Definitely put our best foot forward. It was awesome. And then I spent the rest of the weekend going and teaching some classes. And I was trying to hunt down people who seemed really, really interested to talk to them a little bit more about it. And I realized on Sunday morning, as I was trying to track down 2 coaches from a program that seemed very, very interested. And I had this aha moment walking into conference and looking for these people. And I was like, oh my gosh, I did not ask a single person to close. I didn't close anyone on that night. I had QR codes out so they could go and sign up. I never said, hey, we got to lock in your dates right now. See that line of people? Some of them are going to take your spot. So you need to fill this out right now so I can reserve your spot. I didn't do that. And I freaking know better. And I'm so mad at myself still. Now, I had some sales that ended up closing later, but I didn't close anyone in the moment. And the reality is that selling is different than closing. You can be a great salesperson and not a great closer. You can be a great closer and not as good of a salesperson, but you got to have both. You got to have the ability to do both. And so we're going to be talking about the fact that selling is not exactly the same thing as closing based off of that fun experience. Number one is you have to have a great sales pitch and you have to be able to talk to people. Now, what is a great sales pitch? I'm going to go into this in way more detail at conference, but in short, it is the offer. The things that we're looking to do in our offer is we are looking to, in our discussion, learn what it is that a client needs and then pitch for that client. We want to be able to say, okay, your problem is X and my solution that will help solve that problem is Y. So when I'm talking to a parent in the gym who's coming in for tumbling classes, I want to get to know more about them. I want to be asking about, what is their background in cheerleading? Were they a cheerleader? What are some of the things that they're looking to get out of this? Is their kid bouncing off the walls? Is their kid trying to progress into making their middle school team or their high school team? I want to ask those questions because I'm learning what their problem is. I'm learning what their challenge is, and I'm seeing not only if my product is a good fit for them, but then I'm showing them and I'm walking them through how my product will solve their problem. In my sales pitch, I want to have this structured out in detail. And there is a lot that goes into creating all the different elements of your pitch. There is your introduction. There is your information learning phase. There is your pricing strategy. There is your presentation of pricing strategy. So you have use your price anchoring. You do all of these different things as you're pitching someone. But pitching is just convincing them that they want it. Ultimately, from there, if you have a really, really great sales pitch, you then have to get to the moment of the close. Now, why do we talk about closing and why does closing matter? Well, closing is the moment where someone hands over their card or they actually truly sign up. And if you don't ever ask for the close, some people will just be like, okay, where do I sign up? I love it when people say that. Okay, where do I sign? That's someone that I sold so well, I don't even have to ask them to close. My sales pitch, close them, and they are there. Most of the time, those people are already pretty well sold on your product. They're already pretty well going to buy anyways. As long as you don't mess it up, those people are going to join. The close is that you have to actually practice this because you can do your entire sales pitch. And then at some point, you have to have your verbiage of, all right, so here's the steps to get signed up. Does that sound fair? And then they can go, yes, that sounds fair. And they can get signed up and you can walk them through that process. There are a number of ways to strategize this. You can do the tried and true method of, does all that sound really good? Yes. Okay. What card would you like to put down? Right? You're just speaking of it as if it's actually a reality. Now, in my circumstance, that's a little bit harder because these coaches aren't going to be putting down a credit card because they don't even get paid enough to put down a credit card by the Oregon high school coaches, like Oregon high schools. So they need a different methodology. So, hey, what dates can I lock in for you? Is my close for something like that? What dates do you want to lock in? You also need to look at in your close, what are your potential urgency offers? What are things that are going to get people to sign up right now? Hey, this is our limited time offer, or this is expiring, or this is going away. That's all something you're going to start in the sales and then bring into the close. So you've got to have a close and you've got to ask for it. If you don't ask for it, you are just hoping that they'll follow up. And this is exactly the error that I made. I was like, hey, let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if we can set up some dates for you. I was way too passive with it. Think of it as if you were out in the dating pool. I haven't been in the dating pool in a really long time, but I can tell you, you don't get a lot of dates if you're just going up to people and you're like, hey, let me know if you'd ever want to go on ever want to hang out. Just, let me know, right? If you're never like, hey, I'd love to take you to coffee. Hey, I'd love to meet up with you. You're going to get a lot less results because you're now you're serving the ball back to them, but you're letting them just catch it and then send it back if they feel like it, as opposed to like, I am sending this ball at you. I'm hitting it directly at you and you're either going to return it or it's going to smack you. And I'm going to have my answer on what's happening. I'm either going to know you're a no or you're a yes, or maybe you're a maybe. But what the last thing I want to do is have people leave. All of the data shows in sales that if you allow people to leave, that the amount of people who follow up, even that are crazy, crazy interested, is very low. They have to be really motivated to actually take those steps, which brings me to my number 3. Actually, before we go to number 3, I want you to think about this in regards to when you run like events or you do things where you're gathering emails, you're gathering contacts. Well, that's awesome to gather leads. Have any of you ever thought about asking for a close in a vendor style environment, in a fair style environment, or even at a parade or something like that, like going and like actually trying to get people to close in that moment instead of just treating it like, hey, I'm just going to get your email and then I'm going to blast you with some emails and I'm going to get a 14% open rate and a 15% click rate. And like, I'm going to slowly trickle people in. Like, have you ever really thought about, okay, if someone's going to give me my email or their email in this moment, why don't I try to take it a step further and close them? Hey, we've only got 5 spots left in this tumbling class that you said you were super interested in. If you want, we can lock that in today and I can give you our new member price, which is going to take 30% right off the top. It's a special for anyone enrolling today. What credit card would you like to use? Does that sound fair? Right? We can do those things to close them in the moment. But going to number 3, what we have to really be prepared for is overcoming objections. Now, certainly we're going to have times where people sign up, they don't complain. We say yes to the offer and we hand over the credit card. So do you want to sign up for tumbling classes? How many classes a week do you want to do? Whatever that close moment is, that's actually one of the ones we look at is like, hey, how many classes a week sounds good to you? Oh, well, based on your schedule, we're looking at like 2 classes a week. Okay, awesome. So just so you know, if you ever want to do 4 classes a week, it's this much money. So this is what it would be to do 4 classes a week and 3 supplemental classes. And we pitch all that to them, or we pitch them what we call our on-ramp. And then we go from there and we say, but you said 2 classes a week is great. So let's look at that. That looks like this. The reason I start with something they didn't even fully ask for sometimes is if I can give them a higher price point, I'm doing what's called price anchoring. I'm setting their value, my value in their mind. So then when I go to the price that they wanted, it's more palatable than when I open with it and they go, ooh, that's a little bit steep. And then I'm downgrading from there. So I like to open with a higher price. And I've talked about price anchoring in a couple episodes before, but we've got to be able to overcome objections. And there's some really common objections that come up. It's too expensive. I need to talk to my spouse or partner or thing like that. I don't know if it's going to fit within my schedule. Those are like some of the 3 most common objections you're going to find in a cheer gym with people coming in to tumble or join a team. I'll talk on each one just for a brief moment. It's too expensive. There's 2 things to consider here. One is that means you haven't sold them on the value of what they're getting and you need to build that value, or 2, it literally is just too expensive and convincing this person to do it is actually going to become more of a headache. And even if they do sign up, they're going to be more of a headache than if you just said, I can totally respect that and move forward. Now, if you're hearing that it's too expensive, my response would be something like this. Hey, so when I hear someone say that tumbling classes are too expensive, what that tells me is that money is really important to you, and spending your money, even though it's on your kids and they're priceless to you, is something that you take really seriously and something that you have to budget for. And I can respect that because as a parent, I have to budget. I know that I have multiple kids, that I've got to set things up the right way. And so ultimately, I haven't given you enough information to know that you're going to get the value out of your dollar. I want you to think about a couple things. How much is it worth to you to have your kid find self-worth, find self-confidence, overcome fear, those kind of things? What would that be worth to you to know that your kiddo is going to learn those skill sets here, right? We start to give them those intangibles that are nearly impossible to define how much they're worth. And we loop those back into what we're doing. So again, we're showing them the value. If someone says something like, I need to think about it, then you say, I totally understand. And the reality is I haven't given you enough information to not think about it. So I'd love to take 10, 15 more seconds to just explain a little bit more in detail how great our program is and why it would be a great fit for your athlete, why we'd love to be training your athlete in our gym. Does that sound fair? And then they go, yeah, I can give you 15 more seconds. And then you get another bite at the apple to try and close them. But again, you've got to be able to overcome those objections. If you have people who are saying, hey, I need to go talk to my spouse, there are so many different word flows that you can use around that. In my opinion, that is right and true around 10% of the time. The vast majority of people who need to talk to their spouse are just looking for a get out. They do want to run it by them, but the majority of marriages that are going on, each person, each party, husband and wife or wife and wife, whoever, both parties are buying things that they don't tell their spouse about. It happens all the time. There are so many things that Tori goes and buys for the kids that she doesn't ask for my permission on because they need it or because it is something that she wants for them. She's not asking my permission. She just goes and buys them. That ultimately is kind of where we're going to take that pitch, is we're going to say, hey, I'm sure you buy things for Sarah all the time without asking your husband, right? Well, yeah. I mean, have you ever bought her a really cute outfit without telling him? Yes. Okay. And was he mad? Well, no. That lets you know that you can potentially buy this thing, right? I have a number of pitches. I'm not going to go into all of them because I don't want to ruin my class, a number of counters to objections, but you need to be prepared for those objections. Like, don't be caught off guard. When you give your close and you say, hey, I want you to sign up, and someone goes, well, X. Great. What does that mean? That means the conversation is still going and you have another shot to convince them. Objections are a part of the game. The more you can mentally prepare for them, the better. If you get caught off guard by an objection and you get an objection you're not expecting, then and you fumble with and you don't do a great job responding to, then take a note and then go back and write okay, how should I have handled this? And create a plan to be able to overcome that objection in the moment, so we can then close them. Because ultimately what we want to do is close people when we have them on the phone or in person. We want to make that close then. We don't want them to leave and think about it and get outside input, because it's very likely that outside input or that time to think about it, that's when people are going to be like, oh, I don't know. I know we don't necessarily want impulsive buyers, but we want people to buy when they're in the headspace to buy, and then take the next month, 2 months, 3 months to convince them, show them how great our product is. So ultimately, sales is really, really important. And I know we don't think about it in the cheer industry because we focus on the the technique. We are the best tumbling coaches in the world. We teach the best technique. We have perfection before progression. We deliver such a great product and we really focus on that, but we don't focus on how we message out to people who are new what our product is, how we convince them to spend their hard-earned money with us. That's what is going to keep our business propelling into the future. That's what's going to get us growing. So we have to be good at sales. And if we're not good at sales, we have to align people within our program who are good at sales. That's just something that has to occur. When you're leaving this podcast, what I want you to do is I want you to look at what your sales process is like. Do you have a good sales pitch? Are you asking for the close? Are you prepared for the objections? And if it's not you, is your staff trained? Do they have the experience? And I highly recommend you role play these things. Like, practice sales over and over and over again. That's something we're going to do in Dallas, is we're going to do in the intensive. Practice sales pitches, and sometimes be difficult, sometimes be easy to close. Like, give people the opportunity to practice multiple different presentations, because it's only going to make you better. It's going to make you a more skilled salesperson. And then those things aren't going to catch you off guard and get you reacting and saying things that are not smooth, get you kind of stumbling over your words, seeming unconfident. No one wants to buy from anyone who seems unconfident in what they're selling. Right? That's just not something that is going to inspire people to be like, here's my credit card, charge me every month. All right. So refine that sales process, and remember, closing is not the same thing as selling, and you need to ask for the close. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, share it with someone who would get something out of it. Check out the other podcasts we partner with, the Let's Talk Cheer podcast and the Cheer Mom podcast. And with that, we'll catch you on the next episode.